Today we're going to talk about how to drive conversions with webinars and give you some actionable tips around webinar CTAs. Essentially examples and a free tool that we built purposely to help you create great webinar CTAs that convert. Let's get into it. My name is Jonathan. I'm one of the co-founders of Univid, a webinar platform to create engaging webinars in 60 seconds. I've been a part and behind the scenes of thousands of webinars at this point, so I have a lot of insights into what creates good webinar CTAs that convert. CTAs and conversion, what is that to start with? Well, you both have the CTA. Well, that's a trigger for a specific action you want the attendees in your webinar to take. What does that mean? Well, it could be essentially a button or a link saying download ebook, book a 20-minute demo, or sign up now. And these are kind of triggers to make people convert towards a goal. And they can look just like this in a webinar platform like Univid. You would have a clickable CTA button down below that you could either change or launch at a specific time. And this is another examples of a customer using this CTA to create a very specific CTA calling for them to take an action to learn more about their product in this case. A conversion is then when someone actually, for example, clicks your CTA, meaning they take a measurable step towards a defined goal. And these defined goals could be, for example, generating a market qualified lead, a sales qualified lead, or getting further down the funnel, for example, and generating a booked demo or even a signed deal, or upgrade of an account, for example. So these are all examples of conversion, taking that final measurable step towards fulfilling the goal. Conversion examples in a webinar could be essentially just clicks on the CTA. So you could look at how many in total click the CTA. You could also take a look at individual level, as a specific lead might have clicked a certain different CTA button. That can be really valuable info in terms of following up with that person. Depending on your deal size, you might want to even call these people up afterwards to really make sure they got a lot of value from the webinar and maybe help them take that next step towards a conversion. Another example could be that, for example, in Univid, the CTA clicks are also pushed into your CRM. So, for example, if you're working in HubSpot, you'll see a contact activity card that says clicked on CTA XXX at this webinar. So you will know exactly what webinar they pressed, when, and in which webinar. And if you don't have a platform like, for example, Univid, you could definitely still use CTAs. It's just a matter of how they should look, and maybe you just have to kind of put a link in the chat if you're in, for example, Teams or Zoom or something. Then it might look like on the right, where you write the text and just write the link down below. So you have some examples of CTAs there as well, depending on, and that's something you could do in any webinar or meeting platform essentially. So how do we then create CTAs that convert? Well, $1 million question, right? Well, first of all, you shouldn't be afraid to write longer and more specific CTAs. So instead of learn more, think about what kind of expectations you want to set. Why should someone click, and make them not afraid to click it. Learn more is very vague, and what kind of value do they actually get from clicking it? Whereas learn more about how our CRM tool redefines how you work with this type of problem. Well, that might feel like a very long CTA, but it can be a very efficient one if you write that out. So don't be afraid to use a lot of words in your CTA. Push CTAs that really are tailored to the viewer of the webinar. And the third one is involving the CTA already in the webinar planning process. This means that you can make the webinar CTA relevant to where you place it in the webinar. If you do it at the end, how you kind of frame it then, but also how it ties back to the total topic of the webinar and how you refer to it, for example, and the kind of context you put it in. And in terms of actionable examples, I'll give you 5 CTA examples or groups of examples, going from more, let's say, broad CTAs that you can push in very like non-salesy type of educational webinars and so on, towards very like urgency-driven type of CTAs, which might even suit like a B2C audience a bit better. We want to be very, very direct and push for a direct conversion. For example, here you could have learn more about like follow our updates on LinkedIn, subscribe to our newsletter about X, or learn more about us at. The resource download one is also a popular one where you offer free value or like a next step from the webinar. For example, downloading a free ebook on a certain topic or getting access to the slides that you talked about. That typically kind of filters out who is really interested in the topic. The upcoming event one is also great. It pushes, let's say if you have a webinar series, it pushes signups to the next webinar already, and you'll build an audience that is loyal and loves your content. Now we're getting a bit hotter here in terms of direct CTAs. Here it could be essentially signing up for different kind of resources. So either book a 15-minute demo of Univid, let's say, or a certain SaaS product you're offering. So very, very direct and actionable. It could be sign up to waitlist to get the beta access to some new feature if you're speaking to existing customers or wanting to upsell. And if we go into kind of the final level of urgency where you even push a sense of urgency into the CTAs or a bit of FOMO and push for like direct conversions towards the final kind of step in your journey. It could be, let's say, register in the next 2 hours to get 20% off of our SaaS product, or book this course now and you'll get a free t-shirt. Or you can actually use the Webinar CTA generator. And yeah, I'll show you how it works. It's a total free tool that we built at Univid to help you create your next Webinar CTA and do it for free. Okay, so we'll navigate into univid.io/tools. I'll put a link down below in the description as well. Here you can find a few useful webinar tools, and today we'll take a closer look into the Webinar CTA generator. Alright, so we're now at the CTA generator, and this is an ability to simply input a URL of our choice, which is the link that CTA should lead to. For example, an ebook, a YouTube video, or some downloadable, or maybe book a demo site. And for example, we can enter supabase.com here. It's like a database SaaS, and we could press generate webinar CTAs. Then we could get a few suitable CTAs for this specific URL. For example, unlock the power of Postgres with us, take your app to the next level, building with Supabase now. Maybe this is a good direct one. So let's also then take the next step and actually create a webinar with this title. So then we could essentially just press generate here, and we could then input, let's say we want the same URL to kind of get the design from there. We could wait a few seconds here, and we could see that we get a nice webinar created for us, and with the same CTA that we generated just here previously. So pretty cool stuff. We can view what this looks like from the participant view. Maybe we would change out the splash image to make it a bit cleaner. But then the audience can simply take this next step and convert using this CTA button right away. So pretty cool stuff, and you could obviously kind of change the CTA as you go. You could deactivate and activate it as a big reveal at the end, for example. You could change the CTA as you go also if you want to, say, book a demo of Supabase. You could always do that and add a different link there if you want, and then kind of change the CTA as you go. This is also a bit of a showcase of Univid and how you can work with CTAs in this context to really drive conversions. So I think that was all from me. For today, my name is Jonathan, coming at you with yet another webinar video. I will be pushing out more of these, and you can also check out more of, for example, how you create great webinar titles. This is about conversion during, but also how you can create webinar titles to actually get signups in the first place. Check out that video up here, or for example, our big webinar software guide with a bunch of good steps on how to kind of choose your webinar software. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!